Okay. Hi, everybody. Okay, let's start with the names. Let's start with the names who today's classes are dedicated to. It's a big thank you to the Sidbun family. Sidbun family, amazing family. Okay, I have it here. So this week's Day of Learning is sponsored by the Sidbun family for Lilui Nishmat Rav Shalom Dov Ber Ben Eliyahu Akiva. We feel the void. We really feel the void. A great light, a great man, a great community leader. That we should continue his very holy work. And this week's lunch is sponsored by the Sibon family for the Refuah Shlema of Adele Miriam Bat Michal Aliyah. Do we have any news?
The surgery
went well. Thank God.
And this morning she was okay.
She was okay. She woke up.
I don't know if she woke. I don't know if she woke up, but
okay. Things are good. Thank God. Thank you, Hashem. It is also dedicated for the Refuah Shlema of Adele Miriam Bat Michal Aliyah, Tinok Ben Michal Aliyah, Leah Chana Hai, Devorah Chaya Bat Mazal Tov, Shulamit Sulika Bat Rivka, Tinok Ben Michal, Yosef Ishai Ben Daniel Miriam, Eliyahu Navi Ben Tita Esther, Noah Ben Sloan, Leib Shlomo Ben Sarah Leah, Rafael Yaish Ben Chana, Laurence Aviva Bat Sarah, Carolyn Yehudas Bat Joel Elian Sima, Heleni Orna Bat Chen Chana, Rafael Chaim Meir Ben Sima Chasha, Rav Pesach Yosef Ben Hinda, Rav Daniel Ben Rachama, Alexandra Shirley Bat Nicole Malka, put in Tinok Ben Joalea and Tinok Ben Rachel. Ninoi Nishbat, Rabbi Shalom Dov Ber Ben Eliyahu Akiva, and Rachel Bat Amelia, and Elise Bat Nina. Okay, B'ezrat Hashem, all those that need a refuah shlema should have a full refuah shlema. And all those that are listening to the words of Torah that we're exchanging today should derive a nachas, as this is for the aliyah of their neshama. Yes, no problem. Okay, so like I was just saying, today's concept is a big mishka bubble in my mind. I think I read and heard so many shiurim that like I could confuse so many different topics. So really today, ladies, I'm telling you, it's as if all of us are sitting in front of here because we're going to décortique, we're going to decode all of the things. I'm going to put them on the table, and whatever you're going to touch, you're going to tell me how we're going to tie this together, because in my mind, I'm telling you, Hashem Sifatei Tiftach, because it's all spaghetti in my mind, okay? It really is. Hi, good morning. It's so, okay, so I'm going to lay out some concepts, and you're going to help me sew them in together. Can you do that with me?
Yes.
Okay, good. Because it's everywhere in my mind, but it's good stuff. It's actually very deep stuff. Okay. So we're continuing our Sfirat HaOmer. We're climbing the ladder week by week. Has it felt practical, like within your week, after we talk about certain core values? Do you feel that they're manifesting in your life a little bit? If last year was all about compassion, so this year is all about endurance, and endurance loosely translates to fortitude. Netzach is loosely translates to fortitude, endurance, ambition, and another one that I forgot to mention is victory. Victory. So I want to double click on victory, because we have to ask ourselves, like, what does it mean personally to be victorious? When you feel like you're victorious, when you feel like you've surmounted or you conquered a battle, what does that look like in like a day-to-day life?
You accomplish something that you
Like
not
we're
just
working hard.
accomplish anything, but accomplish something that you truly wanted or didn't think was going to go the way that you.
Are you talking
wanted.
externally or internally?
Both.
Both.
If you're having anxiety, let's
Yeah.
say, or if you're struggling with something,
Yes.
and you say, wow, it's gonna ruin my whole day, or
Yes. Yes.
and then you find a way to put those thoughts and,
Yeah.
and those feelings to the side.
So have
through
control over
tefillah or
them.
through
Yeah.
whatever, then,
Yes.
and then you see the
That you were victorious over it. Yes. Anybody else want to share what victory looks like to them? What does it mean to feel like that you're victorious, that you've fought the battle and you won?
Yesterday,
Victoria's Day.
Good, tell us. We're in the victory mode right now. We're in victory week. Yes.
Went back to Pilates, felt amazing.
Wow, can I join?
Done sports. And I don't know, the whole thing was like little wins. Like
Oh.
the kids, I managed to do all the homework with them, and dinner was ready on time, and everything was like, and it just felt like a Victoria's
Can I
Day.
tell you, moving your body is such a win. It really pours into everything else. I wish I had a sec. I want to offer my work that at a certain point, like we should stop it and just move our body somehow. Like give 20 minutes. I don't know where we'll put this 20 minutes, but I'm very envious that I don't have the time in the day to work out. So much so that even after a full day of work, I will try to put in some movement. But it's true. I see a major difference. It is a victorious thing with movement. Anybody else want to say what victory looks like in their day? I'm looking at you, but it doesn't mean that I'm asking, putting you on the spot here, just to,
The little moments are very like victorious, like you say, like the
The
little
small
wins
wins.
are the biggest wins
yes,
for me.
yes, baby steps, yes.
I think you kind of pride of yourself.
Yes,
Happiness,
yes.
We encourage you to do more. to
More,
try
yes. So yeah, internal wins are a big victory, very big victory. Yes. Okay, so aside from the fact that we are learning different midot, different values in the week that really do transpire in our week, we also started something called Pirkei Avot. Pirkei Avot is the ethics of our father, and it's kind of like certain things that tie into the week. And as much, there's so much going on. Like we follow the Sfirot, but at the same time, there's the Parsha of the week. And the Parsha of the week gives us like really what's happening in our week. It's crazy. And then after there's Pirkei Avot that started 2 weeks ago that give us little things about the Talmud, rabbinic people from the Talmud that say something and then we just take it. So again, I have so many concepts of putting on the table. One thing was victory. This week is endurance. It's about trucking through. It's about being resilient. It's about having goals, meeting our goals, feeling that we've come to a better version of ourselves. That's the victory part. That's the endurance part, the fortitude. It's like even when you don't want, you do. There's days I don't want to go to work. There's days that I rather, just maybe move my body. But as a commitment and with healthy indications that I want this, I do it for my endurance because I've committed myself. Because I can't just work on what I feel. It's like my capacity to go through it. That's endurance. And that's the energy of this week. This week we're also in chapter 3 of Pirkei Avot. And there's 2 commentaries that I'm going to read today that are kind of weird, but bringing a very, very profound message. Okay, so I'm going to read it to you, and then I'm going to translate. Akiva ben Ma'alal Omer. So these are different Talmudic rabbeim. They say, consider 3 things. I'll just say it in English, okay? Consider 3 things so that you will not come to sin. Know where you come from, where you are going, and to whom you are destined to give a verdict and an accounting. So first they use the word accounting, okay? From where do you come from? From a little drop. From where you are going to the place of dust, of worms and maggots. Sometimes it's harsh, but we're going to soften it up, okay? And before who you are destined to give a verdict and reckoning. So the first time he uses it, he's repeating himself twice. He says, know where you come from, where you're going, and who you're going to come give a judgment. So he uses the word judgment first. And then he says, know where you come from a small seed. Know where you're going back to the earth. And then know who you're going to come and give a reckoning. You're going to give an accounting. Before the King of Kings, the Holy One, blessed be He. So the commentaries have a problem with this, okay? When you come in front of a judge, okay, first you give your reckoning, you give your accountings, so and so happened, and then there's a judgment. Here in the pasuk, first we're talking about a judgment, and then there's a reckoning. Doesn't make sense. It's only in let's say North Korea, the Soviet Union, they would judge you, and then they would tell you, okay, now give me your alibi. But that's immoral. That's corrupted. Really, it's supposed to be, I come and I give you my alibi. I come and I give you my reasons, and then you pass your judgment. So the rabbis have a problem with this pasuk also. There's a second pasuk in this week's Pirkei Avot that says, Nifran min adam shedato shelo medato. Payment is exacted from a person with his knowledge and without his knowledge. You're going to come and you're going to get a judgment. You're gonna get some kind of judgment on you with you knowing and without you knowing. So we're bothered by these two things. What do you mean? If I know my judgment, it's clear. What does it mean that I know it and I don't know it? So hang on to these two things, right? I'm just putting it on the table. So one is we don't like the fact that first they use judgment and then they use reckoning in the pasuk. And the second one, we don't like that when something is harshly done, A equals B, right? It's like this happened, this is my payment. You're gonna put a payment with you knowing it and without you knowing it. I'm bothered by that pasuk. Okay, laying it out there. Okay. There's a third story that we're going to share, and then we're going to pull this together, hopefully, okay? And we spoke about this when we went over the women. We spoke about the women, okay? David HaMelech. Who remembers when we spoke about David HaMelech? Yeah? And then we spoke about the story about Bathsheba. Who can recall our story about Bathsheba? He saw her bathing on the rooftop, and then he was exalted by her, like he was so infatuated by her, and he said that he wanted her, but he found out that she had a husband, and so he sent her husband to the front line of the war. And in the times when a person has to go to war, he gives the get to his wife in order so that if he dies, she's not left without a get. And he did this purposely, and he orchestrated all of this because he wanted Bathsheba. Sorry, went over it. So the prophet at the time was Rav Natan, the prophet Natan. And Rav Natan came up to David and he said, you know, I want to tell you a story. I want to tell you something that's happening. And tell me what you think. He goes, there's two men in one city, one who's rich and one who's poor. You've heard this? No. You can go over this going. Okay. The rich man had many flocks and herds, but the poor man had nothing. So one had a lot. He had a lot of sheep and cattle, and the other one had nothing. He saved one little lamb, which he had bought and reared, and it grew up together with him and his son. Of his bread it would eat, and from his cup it would drink, and in his bosom it would lie, and it was to him like a daughter. He had one possession that was a little lamb. And the poor man, for the little that he had, he would feed this lamb, he would drink from this lamb. He made it as part of his family. And there came a wayfarer to the rich man, and the rich man felt bad to take of his own flock, and for his own herd to prepare for the guest, that he came to him, and he took the poor man's lamb, and he prepared it for the man that had come to him. This rich man was going from a big party, and any rich man can also be a stingy man. And instead of taking of his many cattle and sheep, he took from the small little lamb that the poor man had, and he slaughtered it, and he fed it to his guest. So the heartless, unsentimental greed of this rich man is shocking, obvious. And the injustice here is clear. The man has everything in the world, yet when he needed to feed his guests, he steals the single lamb owned by a poor man. Natan asked King David for his opinion of this story. Hi, what should be the verdict of this wealthy thief? Natan comes, he tells him this story and says, Nu, David HaMelech, you who is the king, listen to this story. What should be the verdict of this story? And David became very angry at the man, and he said to Natan, as the Lord lives, the man who has done this is liable to death, and the lamb he shall repay fourfold, because he did this thing, and because he had no pity. And Natan said to King David, you are that man. He said to him, that story, you are that man. You're that man. What did Uri have? Just his wife. He was a lone soldier, maybe a nobody. His only prized possession was his man. You, who could have any woman in the world, wanted her. And so what you did is you send him off to war. You indirectly killed him. And the one prized possession he doesn't have anymore because you took of her. So the commentaries ask this story, and they say, he's the prophet of the time. Why does he have to come to King David and tell it to him as a parable? If he did something wrong, like any good judge and like any good prophet, tell him, you sinned. You took a woman that wasn't yours. You orchestrated a whole plan for her to die. You are perishable by death. Why does he come and tell a story and kind of like tread the lines of the truth, not being so direct, being so indirect? What does this have to do with anything?
You give the judge and then you give the.
Maybe, but we're gonna tie it together because again, it's like potholes everywhere, okay? But here's that story, and then there is the Rebbe of Lubavitch came and he gave a beautiful sikha, and he actually, for the first time ever, I think my two worlds collided. He quoted Rabbi Nachman. The Rebbe of Lubavitch quoted Rabbi Nachman like, this is my merging of my two worlds, right? For anybody who knows me, who heard me speak, my husband is, Baruch Hashem, very attached to Rabbi Nachman, and me growing up, I was very attached to the Rebbe of Lubavitch. Let's just say in general, we're attached to Tzaddikim. So I was able, everybody asked me, like, how are you gonna make that work? Seriously, how are you gonna make a Breslever who's like crazy about Rabbi Nachman, and you who loves the Rebbe of Lubavitch, how you can make that work? And it says, because we have respect for each other's Rebbe, because we know what it is to love a Rebbe, we could respect that each other has a Rebbe. Understand? And so there are some, points of differences, but Baruch Hashem, for now we've made it work. So when I heard that the Rebbe of Lubavitch told over a story of the Baal Shem Tov that was really written by Rabbi Nachman, I'm like, okay, this is from all the stories, we're gonna make this tie-in because this is my two worlds colliding. So Rabbi Nachman says within that story, okay, he quotes his grandfather. For those that don't know, Rabbi Nachman, the Baal Shem Tov had a daughter named Adele, named Vega. No, that's his mother. Yes. The Baal Shem Tov had a daughter named Vega, who had a daughter named Adele, and Adele is the mother of Rabbi Nachman. So it's his great grandfather. Okay. And he heard this through, I got it wrong. Sorry, don't quote me on this. Sorry. But anyways, Rabbi Nachman's great grandfather is the Baal Shem Tov, and he heard this from him. Okay. And I'm going to read it inside. For I heard it in the name of the Baal Shem Tov, that before any harsh decree is enacted in the world, God forbid, they gather all the creations to agree to this judgment, including the person upon whom he decreed it to be enacted. God forbid, and then ask him if he agrees, and if he agrees, then the judgment is sealed. The idea is that, so basically, let's say I come and I tell you, there's a judgment upon you, God forbid. And you have the way of agreeing it or not agreeing to it. Now, obviously, if I'm standing in front of a heavenly court, what am I going to do? I'm going to stand my case. I did something wrong, but this happened, this circumstance happened. Hold on, did you see the context of the story? I'm going to plead my case. But the idea of bringing David HaMelech is because obviously, if you're pleading for your own case, your truth is not going to emerge. What's going to happen? What's going to happen? If somebody's putting you at fault, you're going to give excuses. You're going to find, what's the word for it? You're going to find like different alibis. You're not going to allow the real truth to emerge. And so we learn from David HaMelech, and that's how we're closing one pothole, is that if you really want the truth to emerge, you tell it as a story, right? We miss the idea that Rabbi Natan, the prophet Natan, gave David HaMelech a story about a rich and a poor, and about how the poor only had one lamb, and when he wanted to feed his guests, he took the poor's lamb and killed it. And so we ask the question, why is he telling that story? Because that's the story of David HaMelech, the Bacham, right? So, oh, amazing, thank you. Oh, so it is. So good. So yeah, so Fega had Udel, which is Adele, and Adele is the daughter, is the mother of Rabbi Nachman, right? Did I get it right? Yes. Okay, thank you. So I said it right. So when somebody wants a truth to emerge, they don't tell them their story. They tell them through somebody else's story so that they're not apprehensive. They're going to be able to be truthful. So that's how we know why the prophet Natan came to David to tell him a different story, to really tell him his judgment. But Rabbi Nachman goes further than that, okay? He says, so I just say, so instead they trick him and ask him about a similar case, and he passes judgment on it. Then the judgment is sealed. As we find with King David, peace be upon him, when the prophet Natan came to him and told him the story of a poor man's land, David responded that he should die. And at that moment, the judgment upon David himself was sealed, and it came to his own mouth. This is the meaning of the exact punishment from a person with his knowledge and without his knowledge. So the second pasuk of Pirkei Avot that I told you, you're going to have payment with you knowing it and without you knowing it. This is a profound, profound indication to our everyday encounters. Every day, somebody comes to talk to you. They come and tell you their stories. They come and tell you their pains. They come and tell you anything. They ask for your advice. They want to know your opinion, your advice, what do you have to say about this? Rabbi Nachman comes to say, watch out. We are all interconnected in this world. If something is coming to you, it's not because it's their story, it's your story. If this falls on your lap, there's something, because we're in a singular world, and there's hashgacha pratis, there's something that you need to derive from this. So when you go ahead and pass real harsh judgment, and we do this on the daily, I'm going to speak for myself, me who's like an Aries and always in a leadership position, I feel I'm always trying to educate. I'm always trying to say what's the right. But hold on. If somebody comes to talk to me about their reality, their truth, their life, every experience that they're coming, why am I not thinking that this is my story? And then I pass judgment on them. You ought to do this. You should do that. Rabbi Nachman says, be careful. Watch out. You are sealing your judgment every time you pass judgment on somebody else. Every time a situation, a story, a question arises in your day-to-day life, your thoughts about it, your speech about it, whether you're going to be a conduit and channel for compassion, love, and truth is up to you. Because if you pass judgment, what you're doing is you're writing your own script. And so this is why in this week's Pirkei Avot, they tell you, you're going to get payment if you know it consciously or subconsciously. This also answers the first one that we said, why is there judgment, like the first pasuk that we wrote, right? Why do we talk about judgment and then reckoning? Because once you pass judgment, now you have to start thinking about yourself. It's not don't go this way, it's go this way. When I said to somebody harshly and I judged them, what's happening is I in turn put a lot of judgment on myself and sealed my own face in Shemayim. So then comes another question. A lot of questions. What do you mean I could pass judgment on myself? Why am I? God in the heavenly course passes judgment on me. How can I seal my own faith? How can I be involved in the judgment that's going to come upon me? I'm not God. Right? So this all really ties in also in this week's parsha. This week's parsha is Achrei Mos and Kiddushim. And we're gonna tap into Kiddushim. Kiddushim says, God, be holy like God Kadoshim tiyu ki kadoshani. Be holy because I, God, am holy. Which means we can pass judgment on ourselves because we are put into encounters every single day where we need to judge others. And if we judge others unfavorably, or if we pass harsh judgment on others, we create a judgment on ourselves. And we have actually control on the fate of our life because we are kadosh like God. When you're a part of God, it's not you're a segment. When they say chelek Elokai mimal, it doesn't mean you're a portion. It means you're part of the core essence. Like a core essence is the whole body of it. When you take a piece of hair, right, with an intrinsic DNA testing, a piece of hair can show your whole DNA makeup. So we're not just like a piece of finger. We're from the DNA part of God. So it's not that God is fragmented into different pieces. No, we're the whole essence, like that piece of hair, that it really is the makeup of the DNA. So if you're a part of God, and for the whole essence of God, and if God can pass judgment, not even the angels, they say in Shemayim, and this is how the Lubavitcher Rebbe comes and puts his 2 cents on it. Not even the angels can judge you. Not even the mitragim, like the people that, it's after all God that's going to judge you. But if you're like God and part of God, and if there's a part of you, a part of God in you, then you also have the ability to judge like God on yourself. And you actually are also stamping your fate like God could stamp a fate with how you do it with others. It's crazy. It's mind-boggling. That means every encounter that comes in my life, first of all, I have to recognize is not for nothing. I have to sit with the idea that at any time that I'm faced with some kind of opposition or some kind of situation, there's a reckoning for me. Nobody thinks about that. Everybody thinks that everybody's like separated from that problem. The problem that they're coming to tell me has nothing to do with me. So then it makes me think, okay, if it's coming to me and we're all interconnected, there's a shkacha pratis that exists in this world, then it must be that there's a piece of me that needs to understand this what's coming here. Okay, that's number one. Now, watch out, Rabbi Nachman says. He says it's pretty harsh, like it's like life and death, right? So he says, when this comes in your lap, are you going to be a conduit of compassion? Are you going to be soft about it? Are you going to be kind about it? Because if not, then what you're doing is you're unconsciously or consciously writing up your own judgment. And that's why Natan didn't come and say, you did something wrong. If he would come with a ruler in hand and smite him, he's also creating a harsh judgment for himself. So he came and said it as a story, as a parable. He said it in a way that was more compassionate for two reasons. Because he didn't want to be judgmental. And secondly, because he wanted David HaMelech to allow for truth to emerge. Because if it's somebody else's story, then you're allowing to be more soft about it. And from there, he's able to realize what kind of rectifying he needs to do, because he became that. He was then identified as that rich man that took that poor man's lamb. So when we come back and we have to tie it in, that's when you guys are going to tie this in with me together, okay? When we have to tie in endurance, victory. I'm victorious when at any situation that my personality, and it's work, right? My personality is going to make me want to judge it, want to put harsh, and they don't know, and this is it, and even seeing somebody, thinking the worst of them. This negative energy emerges because all of a sudden I'm creating such judgment. My victory comes from the fact, hold on, where can I be compassionate here? Where can I be victorious in my faith with Hashem, in my connection to the Jewish people? How can I create so much love for this person that I won't come to judge them? It's a lot of work. But it's also, there's a self-serving part of it too. Because if you don't create that harsh judgment, then you're also not unconsciously creating a judgment for yourself. And again, it talks in the Parsha, another part of the Parsha. And I'm going to tell you a story about Parsha. But the Parsha also talks about how sometimes we use religiosity as a crutch. Have you ever heard this?
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. No, it's a question. It was a real question. Meaning like, just because you follow the book of law does not necessarily mean that you're serving God in your most authentic self. How many times do we have, or Hashem, nobody should encounter this, but we encounter such religious figures that, follow the book, come off and show such deen, and sometimes it could be very grotesque. Sometimes it could be very immoral. And the story is told, and I'll tell you like this. A poor man once come to his rich man's home, and he says, please, 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 I'm starving. I'm on the brinks of really passing out and maybe leaving my life. Can you please offer me even a piece of bread? He says, go to the shul over there, they'll feed you. He says, really, I can't even make it to the shul. Give me something. And he throws him in his garbage a piece of scaled fish, like gross fish. He throws it to him, and he gulps it all up. He takes it all in, and as he moves forward, he passes away, and he dies. And I want to say, right? Okay. Hold on. This one. Okay, I don't have it. It's okay. My memory will serve you well. Okay. So maybe I do have it. No, I don't. And so he goes to his wife and he says, listen, this man died. I want to do the mitzvah of bringing him and burying him. Okay, I won't be home late tonight. I want to go ahead and help him with the burial service. I have to do the mitzvah of, what's the burial service of burying the dead? It's a mitzvah. Okay. The next day he says, I'm so sorry, I'm going to be late because I have to do another very important mitzvah. I have to go ahead and do Kaddish for this person. I think that was the last thing I could do, Kaddish, or be part of the services. So no, one was bringing him to die, like, taking the impure body and bringing him to bury him. The second one was the actual funeral service. I want to be able to help within the funeral service. The third one is he found out that he had a son, and the son was his only son, so he wants to pay a shiva call to the son. And I forget the fourth one, but it was another mitzvah that he had to do for this dead. So he said, wow, how amazing that a scale of fish allowed me to do 4 mitzvahs in this world. Sometimes we encounter, unfortunately, people that take religiosity as a checklist. Just because you're following the ritual of the law, because you weren't able to serve a man a piece of bread, you were allowed to do 4 other mitzvahs upon his death. Another victory part of me is understanding that my holiness is not by the judging how I look, my appearance, how I portray myself to the world. It's how I really encounter the holiness in me. Do I show up? Do I ask myself? Do I talk to God? Do I try to refine myself? Or am I just going to stay in a superficial level where I do my mouth work, and I could check off that I'm a religious from Jew? It's not what we're meant to be in this world. We're not meant to serve God like a vending machine, put in the coin and then receive the rest. We're supposed to do the work. We're supposed to be holy like God. Holy like God means holiness exists in me. Find the actualize, tap into the potential. That means that you're faced upon yourself every day, and you have to think, am I showing up as my best self each day? That's also a victory. Now I threw everything on the table now, and we're all tying this together because, again, it's a mush. I told you it was a mush, okay? So just to recap. First, there's 2 psukim in the Torah, right? From Pirkei Avot. One that says, know where you come from, know where you're going, know where will you return. And in that pasuk of the return, we talk about judgment. And then when it answers the same pasuk the second time, it says, know that you come from just a seed. Know that you're going back to dust. And know where your reckoning is from God the Almighty. So why? The question was, why do we say judgment first and then reckoning? First we do an accounting, then there's a judgment. When you come in front of a court, reckoning is like the accounting. It's like going through the cheshbon, okay? First you get the bill, and then you make the payment, right? So we don't like that first we're talking about judgment and then we're talking about reckoning. So how do we close that first one? Is just like the judgment. When you pass a judgment, then there's a reckoning to do, because what you just did is that you're putting a stamp on another person, but now it forces you to look within yourself. Okay. The second one of Pirkei Avot is, if you do payment, if you know it or if you don't know it, you're paying. If you know it or if you don't know it, you're paying. The Baal Shem Tov says that you're in charge of your own judgments. So by judging another, what you did is you okayed your judgment because you judged it upon another. All this is reinforced with the story of David HaMelech. We asked the question, why did Natan have to say it in a parable? Why couldn't he? Hi, nice to meet you. Why? No problem. Why didn't he just tell him harshly? Why didn't he just say to him, you did something wrong and you're going to pay for this? The reason why is because we don't want to pass that harsh judgment on another person, right? So tie this in together for me, ladies, because again, it's a lot of concepts when we're putting them together, but we're slowly closing the holes. Our takeaway is that, number one, when somebody comes to you and comes to talk to you about a certain situation, don't think it's for nothing.
I think it's also look at it as if you're talking to yourself.
Absolutely. So your husband's problems, your children's problems, a problem that a friend is calling you about, don't think that it's aside from you. Don't think that in some way this is not interconnected to your own life. That's number one. Number two, your natural inclination is to judge them. The natural tendencies that you have is to pass judgment. Rabbi Nachman comes to tell you, don't do it. Pause and for a second be a conduit, because if you can understand that what's coming towards you, if you're going to judge it harshly, it's a judgment as if you're in the heavenly court upon yourself. So lead with compassion. Respond with love. Respond with this is my own case. Okay? And the third one is, how can we, okay, I'm wrapping it up in my mind now. How can we do that when we understand that we are holy? We're the hair, the DNA of God. We can pass judgment on ourselves because we are God, we are like God himself. And the Parsha tells us, Ani Kadosh, I am holy, so too you are holy. So if I know that I have that godly potential to pass judgment on myself and also to be loving like God is loving to everybody else, then I'll be able to access that. These are lofty ideas, but we're trying to make it practical. We're trying to make it really practical. So nothing is for nothing. That's number one. People are going to come into your lives. They're going to share stories. They're going to have conversations. They're not random. There's a derivative and there's a story for you. You're going to respond to that now. You're going to respond to that now. How are you going to respond to that? How are you going to be victorious in that moment? By not passing judgment. By understanding that they're compassionate, understanding also that you don't know, you don't walk in their shoes. In this parsha also, it says, don't judge your fellow like you judge yourself. Because we don't have their psyches. We don't have their psychological background. We don't have their track in life. Maybe if we were in their position, we would have done worse. So we're going to judge favorably. We're going to judge with compassion. We're going to understand that all we can be in this life is not to pass judgment. We're a conduit of compassion of God. When you go ahead and every day you act with so much love to everybody because you know that it could also dawn on you, trust me, you will not say a harsh thing about another person. You're not going to say, and this one, oh, because it's going to be now a whole reflection of yourself. Don't go this way, go this way. This week, my victory is don't go this way, go this way. Be conscious and be unconscious. Know that what's consciously happening in your life is also something that's affecting you unconsciously. Put it together in your life now, okay? Like I said, I put this on the table. I want everybody to join in with the ideas of how we're going to be victorious in our own life. The endurance that we're going to have in these kind of situations. And again, it ties in with the Pirkei Avot, and it's so funny that it ties in with this week's Parsha. Go ahead, please.
I think it's just like
It's a
this is-
flow.
It's a flow. It's a flow of understanding that this is the real work. Like, you know who I was speaking with this week, that now I know, who told me like everything that we do as religious women, sometimes we accomplish it of mitzvot and everything, but the truth is what nobody sees, but what we do inside.
Yes.
Our inner work,
Yes.
our breaking down, like breaking the ego.
Yes, that's the word.
The habits.
Yes.
Also, because it's not only the ego. The ego is something, but some people don't have such a big ego, but they have habits.
Mhm.
Habits of reacting, of not taking care also of your emotions that have not been healed.
Yes.
And so you react because you feel that this person hurt you, but the truth is that you have a wound. That's why it hurts.
Right.
But if you didn't have that wound, or if you take care of that wound, then it will not hurt when that person addresses you.
Right.
You
So that
know?
reinforces endurance even more, because what is endurance? I'm getting to a goal. So if the goal is that, okay, I got this pain showed up in my life, then it has to be for me to evolve from that pain. It's painful. Like, God, please don't send anybody in pain so that we learn a lesson. Let's learn the lesson before the pain comes. But if the pain came into our life, it's because I have to now step up to the plate. There's something that I have to heal within myself that's going to springboard for something else. So that's endurance, getting to the goal. But it comes in our life through people. It comes in our life through interpersonal connections. It comes to our life by listening to a random story. I heard a random story, or I had a random encounter, aside from the fact that of my own personal stuff. There's things that I've heard that I have to now pause and think, how is this now a derivative for me? Right? How does this truth now have to kind of merge and immerse itself in my truth? And the judgment, what I'm going to do with that also. That's so personal. Because if I pass judgment on another person, then like, you're sealing your own faith in that way. So this week, my endurance, my victory is to not judge. I think that's my takeaway. It's hard.
Because it's not to judge in our hearts.
Right. It's like it's not just as a face. So your children, we don't know it, but we judge our children so much. We judge our children so much. Our husbands, our parents.
When you wake up, I was thinking about my mom.
It's crazy.
Because sometimes I try to tell her like an advice, but at the same time I feel like I'm judging her. So I'm like, no. And she's like, okay. I'm like, Alina, calm down. You know, you need to tell her in a different way with love, you know. But sometimes it's very hard to tell.
No, but for sure. But now we understand why the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Because if we're judging our parents, then we're creating that judgment within ourselves. What happens comes that we reach that same position, we'll do the same as our parents.
Yeah.
That means we're sealing our fate the same way we don judgment on them. Rabbi Nachman he used very harsh words in this Likutei Moharan about it, because he says, with kindness, with a good eye, with a positive thought, even in your thoughts, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. But first, I'm recognizing that nothing is for nothing. We're all cosmically interconnected. Hi. So if we're all interconnected, then if this comes in my lap, it's not for nothing. Now, what am I going to do with it? What am I going to do with it? How am I going to judge it? And be careful how you judge it, because yes.
Also, I have a feeling that many times, not only like we still our judgment, but we see in the other what
Yes.
we really don't
Yes.
want to see in ourselves.
Yes.
And I had learned that with my Rav a long time ago. And so many times I feel like, wait, oh my God, if that's annoying me, just annoying me, I'm not like, if something that I see in my husband, in my kids, or in my friend is annoying me, is that somehow like it's in me.
Wow.
I just can't, or that don't want to work on it.
Yeah.
Because it's difficult. It's so difficult.
And you're reinforcing the pasuk of Pirkei Avot. It says, payment is exacted from a person with his knowledge or without his knowledge. If you know it subconsciously, if you don't know it subconsciously, the thing that is bothering you is within you. So
And
that's a lot
what
to load. Absolutely.
I
Absolutely.
know. Think about education last year with a group of women, we learned from Rabbi Yechezkel, Jacobson, that there is, Yechiel Jacobson, sorry, that there is actually something that when you see, for instance, in your kid, something that bothers you,
Yes.
you work on it,
Yes.
it disappears from your kid.
Oh, yeah.
Because the only reason why Hashem put it in your kid is for you to see it.
Yes.
The same way Rabbi Natan, it's a living story.
Yes.
Our environment are living stories of what we don't want to see in
Yeah.
us.
No, so two things with what you just said. First of all, also the prophet of Natan is teaching us how to actually give rebuke to somebody. Instead of just harshly telling them, give it as a story. I once felt like, if you want, let's say, no, so the prophet Natan, but yeah, we're talking about Rabbi Nachman also, so it's normal. So the prophet Natan comes and tells it as a parable. Sometimes when you want to kind of tell your children, you want to tell your husband something, don't use it directly. Say, there was this person at the market that said something, and what would you do? Their truth can emerge when it's not criticized directly to themselves. They can allow space to actually give their real impression because they're not feeling victimized. That's one thing also that I took from that also. And my therapist always does it. She says, never you do you. Like, don't even say me. Put it as I thought of something. That's not number one. And the second thing that you said, these laws of attraction, we're hearing it all the time. Energetically, we are always attracting other people that is interconnected with, like, nothing is never for nothing, and it's true. We are the vibes. We're really drawing high. We're drawing in a lot of the vibes. So if you're drawing out a negative judgment on another person, you're creating energetically that judgment upon yourself. Then you see that you're negative. You wake up awful. You wake up with a bad feeling. You wake up like, it's true that when I'm accessing this judgment of mine, this gvura, I see that gvura also lives inside of me. As opposed to when I'm accessing this compassion, when my tone goes lower, my body, my shoulders come down. It's all very much interconnected. So yes, now we're closing it up all together, how we do it. And that's really endurance. That's how I feel I'm going to be victorious this week. By really double clicking on judgment. For 3 reasons, right?
And I love that because somehow, like, when you speak to anyone in the street and you ask them what it is to be victorious,
Yes.
it's crush down somebody,
Yes.
right?
Right.
Like, but this is so not what we perceive as being victorious. I love that.
Yeah. And you know, they once asked, I think it was Dalai Lama or something, they once asked the Jews, how is it that you still exist? How after every pogrom, war, how are you not abolinated? Like, how are you not obliterated from the world? How can it be that you're not perished? Because we are connected to a source, which is funny because it's also in this week's parsha, by the way. The mitzvah of Orla is also in this week's parsha, and I'm going to end with that. Orla is it's a complicated halacha, but it's basically within 3 years of a tree growing, you can't touch its fruits. Okay, you're not allowed to touch it. It's because it's not ripe. It's not good. So that's the mitzvah of Orla. You have to wait 3 years for it to have grown and matured, and then you can eat its fruits. Okay, what happens if you're in a field where you know that you can harvest all the rest of the trees, but there's one tree that is an Orla tree, that it's not at its 3 years growth? You can't touch any of the other fields if you don't know where it is. But if you know where it is, it's okay. It's like betel bishishim, right? You could separate it and you don't know where it is, right? But if you don't know where it is, how can you now harvest such a field? So the mitzvah is if you detach the fruit from the tree, like if you now pluck all the apples from a tree and throw them in 200 apples, then it becomes like, oh, it doesn't matter because we took it out from its source. We are a nation that hasn't perished because we're completely connected to its source. We believe that only when there's a disconnection from their source, then we can start doing that halacha. That comes to tell us that we are part of God's essence. Like I said, that hair shows the whole DNA. We are interconnected to God. So when we're an interconnected nation of God, nothing can break us. You can come and spit me anything you want. I am a reflection of the heavenly source. So I can't be, I have the shoulders. I have the position. And that's how I'll end. Okay, so this week, let's work on not judging. Thank you. Let's work on not judging. Let's work on really using our compassion from what we used last week. And let's also understand that when we create a judgment on others, we're actually stealing our own faith. It's a heavy one to hold, but it's a good one to, it's a good one to know. Okay, B'ezrat Hashem, I think the rabbi's here. Thank you. Thank you. Ladies, I think Esther printed out oh, thank you. I'm Sarah Benisti. Nice to meet you, Aviva. Okay, let's stop the recording.